The Eisners used to be a big deal. It was the best of the best, the creme de la creme of comic book creators and people associated with the comic book industry. That really hasn't been the case for a very long time. The only logical choice that they've made over the past few years, Doc, is they're getting rid of their journalism award, which I thought was pretty funny.
The fact that they didn't get rid of it a long time ago is fairly amusing to me, considering that it's been a very, very long time since there was anything even remotely approaching comics journalism in the comics industry.
Not surprisingly, there are some comic book journalists out there that are crying foul, one of them being Rob Salkowitz. He writes for like Forbes and ICV2.com. I think a couple other outlets out there. And he said, this is an absolutely sham. And he cried out for people to write to the Eisners and get them back on there. He stated, the Eisner Awards decided to do away with the category Best Comics-Related Publication or Journalism and roll everything into a Best Comic-Related Book or Periodical Award. While I'm typically on the side of anything that promises to shorten and simplify the awards process, this one feels ill-conceived, unnecessary, and ill-timed. And yes, I'll cop to some special pleading here. Last year, I was among the nominees in the now-defunct category, won by the late, lamented Panel X Panel magazine, edited by Hassan Atsmani, El Howe, and Tiffany Babb. It's just so funny because no one's ever heard of Panel X Panel. Do you even know what that magazine was about?
No, never heard of it. Literally, in 35 years of reading comics, being around the comics industry, being around comics pros, looking at, comics journalism, I have never heard of Panel X Panel. Not a fucking clue.
It's kind of laughable that the fact that this award-winning, Eisner award-winning Panel X Panel magazine is no longer in print anymore because it was so obsolete. Yet we're supposed to keep journalism awards around when that's the best thing they had to offer anyway.
Comics journalism is kind of a category that only likes to fillet comics journalism or to talk about shit that no one outside of the comic industry has ever fucking heard of.
And let's not forget Rob Salkowitz, Eisner Award nominated Rob Salkowitz, is the guy that was just as recently as 12 months ago saying that comic books were making money hand over fist.
Yeah, he was the it's raining money in comic books guy. Yeah, I forgot about that.
He said, at a time when comics need more media attention, more outlets doing better coverage, and more support for the publications that have survived a brutal economic era for journalism of all kinds, this is exactly the wrong message to send. Covering comics on an ongoing basis is as fundamentally different from writing books about comics as doing a daily strip is from creating a graphic novel. Publications and the journalists who write them have to make sense of industry news, keep people's attention on a daily basis, maintain editorial standards, and a consistent voice across different contributors, and so many other things that authors don't. So we've seen Newsarama was basically gobbled up by like a gaming site or whatever. The Comics Beat has changed hands so many times. It's like the comic book journalism bike or whatever. Everyone gets a ride on it. And actually keeping people's attention on a daily basis is not happening right now, Doc. If you go to a lot of these so-called comics journalism sites, they might talk about comic books 3 times in a given week. They don't say anything about it. The site that releases the most information about comic books really is Screen Rant. And it's all like top 10 reasons that Professor X likes to suck slong, or the top 10 reasons that you should hate Rob Liefeld. And it's all just kind of clickbait bullshit. There's no journalism standards in any of this stuff.
No, and there hasn't been in a long time. Look, as I said, if maybe there was somebody out there actually trying to do something for comics for the last few years, comics wouldn't be in the shape it is currently right now.
To jump on top of what you're saying there. So they've denied that there were any issues within American comic books for like 6 years now. But then last year, they decided they could acknowledge it even after Mr. Salkowitz said it was raining money in comic books. And now they're retroactively saying, actually, the problems began in 2018, and they're the only ones that saw it to begin with. Actually, people have been pointing all this stuff out for 5 years as people like Heidi MacDonald and your Rich Johnstons out there go out there and just gaslit people and acted like sales on fucking manga and Catman and Dogman and all that kind of stuff were the same thing as Batman.
This is a comics journalism, I'd say industry, but it's more like a racket that has tried Yeah, it's more of a girls' club, to be perfectly honest. It's a fucking knitting circle that has been lying to every single person that was supporting it for the last decade and now want to act like, hey, we're a vital portion of the comics ecosystem that keeps comics working. No, if you were, you've been telling the fucking truth for the last decade instead of trying to tell us that all of us were crazy istophobes for pointing out, hey, swapping all of your characters out for diversity versions when they have the most public exposure of all time is probably a bad marketing and sales strategy. And these were the same journalists that were saying, no, you people are crazy Nazis, for arguing that this is probably a bad marketing decision.
He also states the Eisners should recognize media that helps our industry. Journalists can get a bad rap sometimes, but those of us writing about comics tend to have genuine affection for the medium and for a lot of the people in it. And increasingly, doing this work is a labor of love. In the words of the great comics journalist Heidi MacDonald, the best way to make a small fortune writing about comics is to start with a large fortune. He's actually out there lauding Heidi MacDonald, and that's like the fastest way to kill any credibility that you had. The great comics journalist Heidi MacDonald that's been out there gaslighting people for years upon years now, that just this year decided we can acknowledge there's a problem, but nobody is allowed to actually say what the problem is, or she will go out there and attack them and get people saying negative things about them, kind of like what she did with Mark Miller, that went to a comic book shop that had closed down due to negative sales, basically embarrassed the owners of it on their last day in business. Heidi MacDonald is a great comics journalist. Right there, you have no credibility.
There's so much wrong with what he said here. What he's admitting is, I need to be awarded for carrying water for otherwise hacky nobodies that shouldn't be in this industry at all. That's what he's really admitting here, but he won't come out and say it.
And that's why nobody really trusts journalists right now. And I'm not going to say Heidi MacDonald has done more damage to comic books than anybody. That's certainly not the case, but she's certainly done a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're going to say who's done the most damage, I'm pretty sure we can't leave Rich Johnston off that fucking list. Yeah, journalists do get a bad rap, and most of the time, it's for the shit they did. Maybe if you all actually started having, I don't know, something approaching fucking integrity, you wouldn't get the kind of bad rap that you are.
Rob continues, journalists who write about comics outside of comic-based publications have historically had a hard time getting recognition, and this consolidation of categories does not make it any easier. That's a problem because comics have fought for and deserve decent coverage in mainstream press. It helps sales, it helps credibility, and it helps the careers of creators trying to build personal brands and sustainable livelihoods. It certainly helps a small army of publicists and PR folks in the business. If my inbox is any indication, where is there any actual evidence that the coverage in comic books today helps any sales or lends any credibility to any of these books or has helped anybody's career?
If there's any argument to be made, it's that getting comics exposure in mainstream publications has actually harmed comic book sales. Because if you're going to just draw a correlation here, around 2009, 2012 is when comics really started getting covered with any real regularity in some of these more quote unquote mainstream publications. And what has the comic, actual periodic month to month comic sales done since then, except for decline?
Well, you make a good point there, Doc, because for comic books to get mainstream coverage, you have to make Superman gay.
Yes.
You have to replace the entire lineup of Avengers with more younger, diverse characters. That's the only time CNN or any of these news outlets or the Hollywood Reporter seems to actually care about any of this stuff. There are a few articles here and there in the Hollywood Reporter, but I'm pretty sure the publications themselves are paying the Hollywood Reporter to publish the article. But that's the only way they can do it, with some type of stunt gimmick marketing that actually turns off the people that want to read the books.
Yes, there is an inverse correlation to the amount of mainstream coverage comics get and the amount of interest there are in actually purchasing comic books, because the shit that the comic publishers have to do in order to get that mainstream attention drives away the actual readers. So there could absolutely be an argument made having mainstream press coverage of the comics industry killed it.
Absolutely. And this idea, Well, it helps out with the PR folks at Marvel and DC. They're playing Sudoku all day. Those guys don't do anything. Nobody
Yeah.
there earns any of their paychecks. There's no good publicity for any of these books.
The only thing that they know how to do is send out a press release saying a new character just got turned, or a character just got turned gay, a character just got turned black, a character just got turned female, character just got turned some other, ethnicity, or
Just
some
got killed.
Yeah, that's all they do. They have a bingo card. They have a fucking dartboard on the wall with a bunch of different adverbs on it that they throw a fucking thing at, decide, well, that's what Night Thrasher's going to be now, and then issue a press release and say, fuck it, who cares?
Hey, if the Eisners want to start acknowledging people that are out there through their hard work and dedication that are helping sales, credibility, and helping creators create personal brands, maybe they need a YouTuber category.
It'd end up Comics Drake, Comic Storian, Comics Explained, Storytime Comic Book YouTube, not the people that are actually out there doing the real work, giving the criticisms and pointing out where the comics industry is doing things right and where they're doing things wrong in order to make them a more commercially viable industry. Instead, it'll just be whoever's out there filleting them the best.
Yeah, I don't think these journalists realized when they were contributing to the demise of American comic books and making it unstable, and as Gail Simone bragged about, ripping down the tent poles and all this stuff, you were making your own business unviable as well.
These are a bunch of people that are borderline retarded that can't get actual work in any other entertainment field. This is like the rejects of the rejects of the rejects of the entertainment and media industry that all end up demonstrating their complete lack of any sort of business sense. The same people that put Gail up as a bastion of great comics making and think that her idea of ripping down tent poles doesn't cause the tent to fall on your fucking head.
I will agree with that one. And he did have a final call to action. According to Eisner Award Administrator Jackie Estrada, judges had the latitude to adjust the categories and criteria as they see fit. If you are a publisher, a creator, or a publicist who believes that periodical journalism about comics is important enough to be recognized by the industry's most prestigious and visible awards, please make your voice heard. With all that is going on in the world of journalism these days, it is a crappy enough time trying to write professionally about anything. It would be great for comic publications and comic journalists to still harbor the hope of recognition for our efforts.
What he's really saying here is, no, we don't need to do a better job. No, we don't have to actually provide any benefit to the comics industry. No, we just need to make sure that the people that have spent the last 10 years lying to the reading public have hope that they'll be recognized for their continuing efforts to lie to the reading public.
They should just have an award because they exist and they've been carrying all these people's waters. And like I said, they just leave out the customers, even though technically there are more readers than anybody. But I think the writing's on the wall that people just don't trust journalism across America. And certainly comic book fans do not trust comic book journalists for a good reason.
You are the definition of the participation trophy generation. You don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to make yourself a viable industry. You don't need to, write shit that anyone wants to read that actually has any amount of integrity. No, you just need to be a mouthpiece for the PR departments of the big publishers that have been driving their own company and with your help right into the ground for a decade. So keep it up. Get your fucking participation trophy, buddy. Bitch and moan to the Eisners. We need it. We need to be recognized for being here.
So that will do it for our discussion about the Eisner's Journalism Award going away. I thought that article was absolutely hilarious. He was, I don't know. The self-awareness when it comes to comics journalists is absolutely hilarious. But Doc, you and I talked for about 28 minutes about this. This was a very long conversation. Obviously, when it goes up on YouTube, it's going to be about 12 to 15 minutes. If you want to see this all in full, we do the Doc Unfiltered version of this where you get the full conversation unfiltered, and you also get the full Rise of the Powers of 10 review unfiltered, and it's already on the Patreon.
It should already be up. You can go check it out and you can hear all the times that I insulted Rob Salkowitz and possibly the entire comics journalism grift.
There's a link in the video description.